Hey everyone, welcome to Saturday Night Popcorn. This is Jason.
And this is Kai. We have another great discussion for you today. The movie of the day is actually two films. We're continuing with our reboot esque month for August of 2024. We watched Ocean's 11 from 1960 and Ocean's 11 from 2001. I didn't know there was an original Ocean's 11 from 1960 until maybe 3 or 4 months ago. And then I threw this on Jason saying, "Hey, we should check it out." And he was like, "I didn't even know there was two of them."
Yeah.
So we decided to watch both. And spoiler warning, just in case you haven't seen these, even though they are very old, both of them.
Yeah, actually both of them.
We'll give a brief description from the most recent Ocean's 11 from 2001 before we get into it. Ocean's 11 is a stylish heist film directed by Steven Soderbergh, featuring an all-star cast led by George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and Matt Damon. The story follows Danny Ocean, George Clooney, a charismatic ex-con who assembles a team of 11 skilled criminals to pull off an ambitious heist. Their target, three of Las Vegas's biggest casinos, the Bellagio, the Mirage, and the MGM Grand, all owned by the ruthless Terry Benedict, played by Andy Garcia. With meticulous planning and a series of clever maneuvers, the team navigates high-tech security systems and personal challenges to execute the heist. The film is a thrilling blend of suspense, humor, and camaraderie, making it modern-day classic in the heist genre.
Yeah. And so we watched the first one from 1960 as a contrast, like where this story came from. And what's special about the 1961, you see it right away, is the inclusion of the Rat Pack, like
The Rat
Frank
Pack.
Sinatra,
Oh, Blue Eyes.
Dean Martin, and stuff. And so, um, that's like really cool to see that. And I don't know how big they were into like acting back then, like when they did this. But it just seemed like a fairly like it seemed like an easy way to sell it on them. Like, hey, here's the
Yeah,
story. You guys are all in Vegas anyways.
I think I was telling you before we decided to watch these that there's like a documentary on that one, on the original Ocean's 11, and they kind of talk about that. Like that's how it was sold to them. Like, hey, you guys are already out here doing your thing. You can peel off for a little bit. We'll give you some money, and you make a movie together. You guys are buddies. You go still do all your shows throughout this time, and you get to make a movie also.
Yeah, and it's like, and I think you also said that like it was very very difficult in terms of like how their schedules work to like get all
Yeah,
of them in the screen all at
and you
once and
see
stuff.
that when you watch this too. It's
Yeah,
only maybe 2 or 3 scenes where you see all of them like assembled together.
yeah, it's almost like when they're going over the plan
Mm-hmm.
at the pool table scene, and like you see all of them, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's an expensive shot.
Oh, for sure. Oh my. And there's no telling like if it was one take or multiple takes.
Yeah,
And I think they get
or
into. I didn't watch the full doc, but I think they get into that a little bit about like some of the actors not wanting to do multiple takes. It's like, oh, we did it. We got it with one. We're good. We got stuff we got to do.
I can see that where it's like it kind of goes into like the discussion that we're gonna have with the sympathizer, where it's like you know that there's some actors out there
Mm-hmm.
and actors and actresses that are like, oh, I need to have multiple takes, or I need to do a bunch of. There's
Yeah,
also directors that do that. I think Stanley
Fincher.
Kubrick does that.
Yeah, and Fincher
Is
too.
that we'll take a bunch of shots of it, and then I'm gonna choose whichever one's the best.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think the Rat Pack, and there's some people out there that are like, no, like I need to get it done first, and then I'm gonna go smoke my carton of cigarettes.
Give me like 2 hours, and then I'll come back and do what I got to do.
Yeah. So I'm drunk the whole time. Like I don't know, but would you like best of like seeing the contrast of the 1960 version and then the 2001 version?
So the 2001 version, I have like a guilty pleasure in watching those. So as a kid, my dad used to watch that whole series. I don't think he's seen the 1960s version, so I might need to bring that up to him. But he used to watch 11, 12, and 13. It felt like all the time. and that translated to me watching it every finals during college. I
Interesting.
don't, yeah, I don't know when I started, but at some point I was just like, during finals studying, I would have 11, I would start with 11, go to 12, 13, and just watch them on repeat throughout, like studying for finals. Um, so yeah, that has like a special place in my heart. But the contrast between the two, it's the camera. Like in the original, the 1960, it's very static.
Hmm.
Like the camera, if I remember correctly, the camera moves or like has some movement with Sammy Davis Jr. in the at the dump. There's
What
like a
he's like
push
singing and
in.
everything, right?
Yeah, there's like a push in there,
Hmm.
but a majority of the shots are very like, okay, you guys are in this location. It's a wide shot. The camera's going to stay exactly where it's at because they had big ass cameras back then. Where 2001, that one had more movement. There were like different shutter speed styles. There was flashbacks that had like black and white or color. Like they went all out for that one.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Where it's like, but you're almost impressed by when the camera does move in the
Oh
1960
yeah,
version. You're like, there's
like
that
what?
like sometimes it lifts, and you're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
wow, that's kind of nice and everything.
Like you
Like you
sure this
can
is
tell,
1960?
yeah, that's true because like you can tell that they're already thinking about like cinematography or like
Yeah.
cinematography involves possibly in the future moving the camera more, kind of being more fluid. Where in the 2001 version, you see like the dynamic or like the idea that like, oh, people walk through casinos, and so let's
Mm-hmm.
follow them walking through casinos and stuff, or like seeing as to like what's happening here, where like they're like spray painting the little like number around the doors as to which door they're going to open or whatever when the lights go out,
That
and
was
then
actually
seeing as
really
to,
cool too.
yeah, there's like
Yeah.
cool stuff that happens that like you're almost like, all right, I think my biggest like excitement or something watching them back to back was that I think the Oceans from 2001 is like the best example of how to like modernize a story that came out in the 60s, where the 60s
Yeah.
there's cigarettes all over the place, they're drinking 24/7 and everything.
Oh
It's a
one
very
also.
old school.
Oh
uh,
one Vegas was just like that. There was cigarettes
oh yeah, definitely, but
everywhere. Not like the 60s, but it was still like, man, it's a lot of cigarette smoking here.
but like it in that time, like in the 60s version, they're picking up the
Mm-hmm.
phone and they're talking to an operator,
Oh
and then like
yeah.
that's how like you would get routed to like your people and stuff or whoever
Instead of
you
just
want to
picking up a
call.
cell phone.
Yeah, so and then it goes to like they know in the 1960s version that, oh, we can do all five of the hotels because those are the big hotels on the strip.
Mm-hmm.
Where in the 2001 version, it's like, no, three of
No,
them will
three.
give us enough money
Yes.
for all of us.
You know what's
So,
crazy is how different Vegas looks.
oh yeah,
Like old, like to see old Vegas in the 60s, like those were the big hotels. And then to go to '01 and just see these massive hotels with slot machines and roulette and everything everywhere.
and
That was a contrast too, just to see how much Vegas has changed in that duration of time.
even now, if you get like from 2001 to this is 24 now, like
Oh
you
yeah.
see
A football
Vegas
team is out there
now,
now. They
football
make it a
team,
basketball team. Like,
basketball teams. It's like
yeah.
there's like there's a giant ball standing around like
Oh,
in the
yeah, the
center of
sphere.
so
Yeah.
so
That's a
things.
happy face sometimes. It scares the shit out of people.
Yeah. So I'm like, I was very like intrigued as to like, this is like a good way to show someone how to modernize a story. Because all you need to do is basically just kind of like show,
A snapshot.
yeah, the technology of what's happening then. Like it's a vault that you're like going into, like a giant
So,
vault.
do you think it's time for them to reboot it again? Because I
That
know,
sucks.
but it feels like because of what you were saying or what you were explaining, it feels like it's a good time for them to do that. Because we've had 11, 12, and 13. Then we had Ocean's 8. It feels like they should either continue with 8 and have like a 9 just to kind of fill out that
like
8, 9, 10.
numeric thing. Yeah.
Yeah, which I would be down for. Like 8 wasn't the greatest, but 8 was decent enough for me to be like, I'll turn it on when I
Yeah.
need something to watch. So that would be cool if they brought the characters back from 8, did 9, brought them to Vegas, and they showed us, hey, this is how Vegas is now. Like Danny was hustling Vegas in '01. Yeah, there were some nice casinos, but look how it is now. There's a sphere, there's a football team we can take money from, or yeah, figure out something.
Something, right?
I think that would be pretty cool.
That'd be cool, yeah, because like man, like nowadays, like in the 60s, 70s, like yeah, decades, like things change throughout the decades, but now we're seeing that
So
like
fast.
our lives change fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And so you do see that there could be like a technology. Look at back then when from 2001, they were still using like tiny phones, flip
Oh
phones, and
yeah.
stuff. Like now we
Zoolander
have like
phones.
we have like perfect computers inside of our pocket that like emits radiation like crazy. But
Shh. You're
yeah,
supposed to
no
know
one
that.
talks
Come on.
about
Shh.
that.
These are
I
enjoyment things. These bring us joy.
Yeah, I can ask you that same question. Like, do you think it will be well received by people? Do people want to see like an Ocean's 9, like you're saying?
I think it would have to. I think so, but they would have to do it in a way where they merge the cast. Well, they somewhat merge the cast from the 11, 12, and 13 series with an 8. But I think they would have to bring in the heavy hitters. Figure out a way to bring Danny Ocean back in, bring Brad Pitt, and bring Matt Damon back into it. Because in 8, they kept touching on the fact that, like, oh, yeah, Danny Ocean's dead. But it's like, oh, is he really? So figuring out how to get him back in and bring Matt Damon with Sandra Bullock's team, yeah, I think they could do something with that. I think that would be really cool.
Hey, and it's funny because like if you do a heist movie, like this is like one of many heist movies we've seen
Yeah.
while doing this podcast and stuff. And it's like heist movies are fun because it's like you
Mm-hmm.
kind of know what's going to happen, but it's like more of like the journey as to how to get there and stuff, and like the
Yeah.
chaoticness and everything. Which is
But
funny is a different contrast from the
yeah,
'60s one
I was
because the
gonna say
'60s
that.
it was like there was a lot of exposition before
Mm-hmm.
they got to everything. Where like in the 2001 version, I was shocked where it's like, whoa, it's like 30 minutes in, you're like, oh, they're already kind of like planning everything. They
Yeah.
already got the whole team. They don't care.
Putting things in place like, hey, you're gonna be here, you're gonna be here.
Yeah.
And that's the difference too, like the fact that I think it's the camera movement. Because it's so static in the 1960 version, feels very slow, feels very
Mhm.
sluggish. It's like, okay, a lot of exposition. Hey, this is how we build the team, this is how we plan it. And in '01, it's like, okay, hey, we can build this team in 25, 30 minutes, and all we got to do is just plan everything and get the pieces in place so we can get this money.
Yeah, I guess it also shows the times too, right? In
Yeah.
1960, it took a lot of time for information to get across to someone,
Oh yeah.
and then for them to get to wherever they need to go also. Where in 2001 and now currently information is like instantaneous. And
Mm-hmm.
also you can fly around the world in like a day basically, in like
Yeah.
like it seems like a day. But
And
so
still be on
it,
the internet the entire time.
yeah, right? And still it's
Not miss anything.
I now let me ask you this. If so we saw the Rat Pack from the 1960 version, and
Yeah.
like those were the dudes. Like if you're talking about
Yes.
like who ran the 1960s, those individuals were probably the
Mm-hmm.
dudes that ran everything. Now, do you believe the people that they chose for the reboot in 2001 are the same kind of stature at that time as the Rat Pack?
I don't, because we were kids in '01. Um, so I don't think they were. I wouldn't put them at okay. I wouldn't put them at the same stature at that point in time in
Mm-hmm.
'01. I think they were all well known and well received. But if you compare their stature now to '01, it's totally different. Like I feel they're close to that Rat Pack stature now, but it's been 20 years, 20 plus years since that original one came or the '01 came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, at the time, no. We were kids, so I don't really know. But just kind of looking back at what movies they were in, and maybe Brad was, but Clooney, maybe Clooney, but yeah,
I feel like
not
Clooney
not
was
Rat
the
Pack
dude.
status.
Yeah, not Rat
No, but
Pack
I feel
status, I
yeah,
think,
but
but
I think they had
he was a
they
dude
were
to like.
received. Yeah, well
Mhm.
received.
Yeah, it's interesting
Yeah,
because it's like that like the Rat Pack at that moment had their full on careers. Like Dean
yeah.
Martin, they all kind of sang within the movie. So it's like it almost like Patty sitting next to me watching the movie was like, when is Frank Sinatra going to sing? And it's like it doesn't come into like the credits. Basically, like his
Yeah.
song comes on during the credits, and so it's like, but that they had their full on careers basically
Oh,
as
they were set.
big
Yeah.
old music stars and running Vegas, that they were like, oh, we can just do whatever we want and we can be
We'll do a
actors now.
movie. One thing I really liked that we didn't touch on was the New Year's Eve party, the transition between all of those,
The
with just the
balloon,
balloons going up.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, that was super smart. That's a
hmm
perfect way to do it too.
They didn't change the balloon color though. I wish they changed the balloon color to match each party. That was my only gripe on
Come
that.
on. If the person that edited that portion is still alive, he's probably like, well, come on.
It was 1960. I wasn't worried about it
I
then.
was physically cutting them and
I
putting
was
them back together.
taping it, putting it back in, letting it run, checking it. Like, and you're worried about a color? Yeah, I can see that. But
Yeah. But
I can
yeah, that
gripe
was
about it
like,
now.
yeah, totally. Like we can nitpick at a lot of things. Like I think my biggest nitpick, and it's funny, it's like sort of the same nitpick of like both
Mm,
movies, is that the dude that like is the money dude in the first movie, he's just like super annoying. Like he's just all over the place. He's like, oh, he's
yeah.
just tired of everything. But then Don Cheadle's like English, French, I don't know, whatever accent he's trying to do. I was like, this is like we've had multiple movies that they're like horrible accents.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
But I
was
think they
horrible.
wanted that for Gambit. If I'm guessing you're referencing Gambit, I think they wanted that for Gambit.
I think so. I think that was like something that they really wanted, is like a horrible accent for Gambit.
Yeah.
But like, man, we've had a few movies lately that like, yeah, there's some horrible accents, and then Don Cheadle is definitely has a
Takes the
horrible
cake.
accent.
But even him, like we talked about stature of actors and actresses for these two, Don Cheadle was just like another actor in this in '01. Now Don Cheadle's big time.
I would think Andy Garcia and Julia Roberts were like the big name dudes, big name people, and then George
Outside of,
Clooney.
yeah, but Brad too.
That's true. Brad's been doing stuff like
Yeah.
since like the early '90s and stuff.
I
So
didn't realize he was in Thelma and Louise until like last
seriously.
year. Yeah. I was like, holy crap.
And then also then you see that like Matt Damon has we have to look into like his movies. Has he always done something with an Affleck? Because like there's also Casey Affleck in this.
Yeah, Casey's in there. Yeah. That's crazy. Well, didn't they grow up together?
Yeah, they
All of
all
them?
like him and Ben did definitely,
Yeah.
because that's why they did Good Will
And
Hunting.
Casey's
But it's
probably like his little brother. Yeah.
that's hilarious. Like I wonder if he has a like they both have in their they all do. Like if I'm in a movie, I have to be somewhat associated with
Somewhat.
it.
I need that producer. You have to put my
Yeah.
foot in it. Something. Like I have to be
I'm
in
showing
this
up once on set.
Just in the background, just waves like, hey.
Yeah, I was very surprised, and to be honest, this is the first time I've seen these movies. I've never seen the
Oh,
Ocean's
wow.
movies, like any
Okay.
of them. And my brother Michael, who's been on this podcast, like loves these movies. He's also like you,
Yeah.
where he would just put them on in the background and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's
I'm
like,
a sucker for these movies.
yeah. And he's like, I've seen these many times, and it's like I
Mhm.
will see these many times more in the future too.
The one thing I do skip 12
Oh
a
yeah,
lot. Yeah. 12 is not good. So I
and
skip that one a lot.
I don't know. And Patty's the same way. She was like, yeah, this is like I've seen these multiple times too. And it's like she was surprised I've never seen this one.
I'm
And
surprised you've never seen it.
yeah, I never like I don't know why I never went on my way to watch it. And it was nice to actually watch it, because it's like you see why it's so good. There's a lot of star power in it.
Yeah.
And granted, nowadays, like we see these dudes, like Andy Garcia, George Clooney, that like they're like big name people now. Yeah, in terms of seeing the faults, I think that's the only thing. Like, there's like nitpicky things where it's like there's people like I feel like the first movie it's a little bit too long. Like,
Yeah, that's my gripe too. It
yeah,
felt like it was a 2 hour film that felt like 2 hours.
yeah, you definitely feel how long the movie is.
Hmm.
But that's basically like the only thing I can think about because it's like
Yeah,
I think back then they were still like thinking film is not its own separate medium where they were still seeing it as like, oh, it's theater. So like everyone's
yeah.
so dramatic, everyone's like so like expressive, but like I guess they forget that like the camera can get real close to you. Like they can
But
zoom in.
yeah, but I think they had that. They had to work around that too. The fact that the camera was so large, like they couldn't just
Maybe.
have somebody toss it on their shoulder and be like, "Oh, let's get a close up." Like, grab the
Yeah.
camera and go. Now they can just pick it up with one hand and be like, "All right, cool, close up, boom."
Yeah, and be across the room and zoom in
Or
and be
that,
like, yeah,
yeah,
we're like right in front of your face.
yeah. I see all the pores in your nose
Yeah.
right now, and I'm 100 yards away. So, okay.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you see? Do you see anything wrong with the, or like anything that's
For the
like,
'01,
oh,
I
one?
hated the slow shutter speed
Yeah.
scene with Matt Damon when they introduce him on the train. I do not like that. And then the time lapse when they have the camera on the strip in Vegas and it's just a time lapse of people just walking by. I'm like, this is dumb. Those are the two gripes. Like, and I've seen this movie, I don't know how many times, but watching it this time was when I noticed. I was like, oh, this is really stupid. They should not have had this.
And what sucks is that that shutter speed thing, I'm assuming is like not so bad when you watch it on technology from like 2001. But
Oh, yeah, for
nowadays,
sure.
refresh rates and stuff, and
It's
it's
like,
like it's
ugh.
almost just too like hard in your eyes, and you're like, what
Yes.
am I doing? What like I don't know what I'm looking at. So I get that. I
No,
definitely get that.
but I think it was only for this film because I watched the Chunking Express recently, and that has a lot of slow shutter speed, but that was really pretty. That's like they did it in a pretty way. This one, nah. This was just like, nah, we're gonna have it as slow as possible. You're gonna see all the drag of people walking by.
So then definitely, someone watched something and they're like, "That looks cool. I'm gonna try it out in
Yeah,
this movie."
and it just didn't translate very well. Like, don't have a heist movie with slow motion. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Unless they're running, like have them run in slow motion, but don't have people walking by. It's like, come on.
Yeah, those random things where it's like, yeah, I that shutter speed or like when it's like all slow motion, it was like really
Hmm.
awkward and stuff. And but I'm like very surprised how well this thing they like brought it up to the modern times. Still kind of telling the same story, basically the same story. They're
Yeah.
stealing money from casinos. There's that added little flavor that George Clooney is like trying to get back at the dude that owns these casinos. so,
Yo,
so that's
Clooney's
awesome.
rutahless in all three of these
Yeah,
too.
I gotta
Yeah,
watch the
you
rest
got
of
to
them
watch them.
actually.
You should watch, since you have never seen 12, watch 12 and then watch 13 right after because then you'll see why. At least you may see why I dislike 12.
Okay.
And then if you've already seen 8, I'm guessing.
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I
Yeah,
haven't
8
seen.
is 8. I enjoy 8. I think it didn't. I don't think it was well received, but I enjoyed 8.
I think 8.
Maybe because of the cast, but
Yeah, but you said Sandra Bullock's in it. And I guess Sandra
yeah,
Bullock, like,
that's
that's
one of the
cool.
reasons why.
Yeah.
Well, Sandra, it's Rihanna, it's Kate
Damn,
Blanchett,
Rihanna
it's a
after
bunch. Yeah, it's a great cast.
after Battleship, that great performance in Battleship.
This, yeah, this helped.
It's a better showing.
Oh, for sure. I didn't even watch Battleship. Battleship looked
Yeah, I
good.
see it on TV sometimes. So I'm like, I just watch it just to be like, oh, this existed.
Yeah, that goes back to our conversation with Independence Day. That was that same like realm. They were like, "Ooh, we have IPs
Yeah,
out there.
right. Like, there's
Let's
just
make a
like,
movie."
let's just make it. Like, let's make a Connect
Yeah.
Four movie.
Oof. Well, now they're making Minecraft.
Well, that makes sense. Like, unless if you're
Does it?
making like because they made a
I'm gonna
Lego
watch
movie,
it. Lego movie was amazing
so if
too,
they're trying
and
to
Mario and
do
Luigi.
yeah. So it's like that makes sense. Like that
Yeah, okay. They
video
have to go
game
down that
medium.
realm though. Like, hey, it's a full-on story. Like,
Yeah,
yes, it's video game based, but it's a story about said characters.
yeah,
Then I'll be down
yeah.
for it.
So you have to like create that. But
Yeah.
what'd you end up giving these movies? I scored Ocean's 11 from 1960 a little less than the
I did
2001
too.
version.
I did 3.5 and 4. So 1960, I gave 3.5, and then I gave '01 a 4.
Same here, actually. That's exactly what I did too.
Oh wow.
The 3.5 for Ocean's 11 in the 60s, it's like you're almost kind of like just like hampered by like how long the movie is, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
like lead up to, and then like the ending portion is the heist, and you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
And then you're almost confused, like you
There's no
were
happy
before
ending.
this. That's like how it ended.
Yeah, because I'm so used to like 11, 12, 13. I'm like, okay, it's a happy-ish ending. And then you watch 1960, and I, I was telling Jason before we started recording that I had to rewatch the ending because I wasn't sure if I saw the correct ending. Because I'm like, oh, they have to end up with the money, right? Like that's what heist movies do, and they do not end up with the money. They just walk off into the sunset
one
or into the
dude,
day, not even the sunset.
one dude gets the money on the other side.
Oh yeah, yeah, yes. And the pearly gates is like, oh hey, here's
Yeah.
all the money that was in there with you.
His box going into the little cremator was a little heavy that
Oh
time.
my goodness.
Now, last question: Do you
Yeah,
still do you recommend the 1961? Like, if someone wants to watch the Ocean's 11
yeah,
film?
yeah. I think so. I think I would say start with that one. If
Mm-hmm.
you've never seen any of these, I would say start with the original from 1960. Uh, it's it's fun. It's slow, like compared to films now. It's slow, but still a good film. And then immediately watch 11 from '01.
Mm.
You can see those differences.
Yeah, and
So I would still recommend it.
carryovers and the
Yeah,
modernization. It's cool. It's a very cool
yeah,
ride. I would definitely recommend it to my brother. My brother, like someone like you,
yeah.
have seen the modern ones so many times. You're like, hey, did you even know that there's a 1960 version? I
Hmm.
bet you there's some boomers out there, some old people that are like, yeah, I knew that first. But yeah, so that's that. I think that's exactly like who you would want to like recommend it to if they like love oceans
Yeah,
movies and stuff and everything. But yeah, it's fun times. All right, Kai, you want to take us out?
yeah. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Saturday Night Popcorn. I'm Kai.
And I'm Jason, and we'll be back next week with another one. And please let us know in the comments below if you've seen Ocean's 11 from 1960 and also 2001. If you liked them, disliked them in the comments below. And please like and subscribe to Saturday Night Popcorn for more podcasts like these.